So who am I? I am, on Twitter, I'm World of Chris. I'm Chris Young, Head of Engineering at a company called Base 79. This is the team I work with. We got New Relic monitoring, and they said, would you like some T-shirts? And we said, yes. So I've discovered that the T-shirts are they're like catnip for developers. I'm certainly speaking for myself. It's just if you offer me a free T-shirt, I'm yours. And so Base 79 is where I work. That's where what I'm going to be talking about. All the work was done there. What Base 79 do is we're what YouTube call a multi-channel network. So we manage people's videos on YouTube for them. So we work with record labels, people like Domino Records and Ministry of Sound. We work with sports federations, so people like the Football Association. We also work with original content producers on YouTube, so people like Jamal Edwards at SBTV, free runners, parkour people, gamers and that. And our pitch to them is, we will make you more money from your videos online than you will on your own, and we'll prove it by doing it as a rev share. So we don't charge for our services. We take a rev share, but then it nets out at being so high that you're better off with us. So as long as we carry on doing that, that's the measure of success, and that's us having a compelling business. We're funded by Peter Chernin, the Chernin Group. He's also an investor in Flipboard. He's on the board of Twitter. So this is one of his strategic investments. That's what we do. That's our boss. So, who can tell me what this is? Whack-a-mole. What is whack-a-mole? A fun game. To some people, it's a fun game. To other people, it's a model of IT service delivery in a small business. But I'll be here till Thursday, all the rest of it. So there we are. So there's our demand, and there's our capability, and we need some way of getting the two to work together. So this is kind of where we were when I came in to Base 79 about a year and a half ago. In a way, we've gone full circle in that there are some areas that we're back to this, but I'll come to that later. So I'd just come from doing a Kanban initiative at the BBC with Behaviourral with Dan Brown at the back there. And I was very keen not to kind of bring too much of what I'd done there here. I wanted to start again from scratch and say, okay, start with what you know, start with what's there, and see how we get on. So the first thing I did was build a very, very simple Kanban board. So this is in JIRA, and essentially what you've got is in progress here and then a buffer here. So you can just say, okay, stuff is coming in. At least we can throttle that back and say, all right, let's just see what work's coming in and try and make some decisions over how we prioritize it. And I was absolutely delighted when the team proposed work in progress limits themselves. They said, they didn't say we want to put actual numbers in place. We want to have a rule or a policy that says we'll work on no more than 2 items at a time. I thought, this is fantastic. This is really good. It didn't work out, and we'll find out. We'll see why it didn't work out in a bit. One of the biggest problems we had to start off with was the ratio of features to defects. So our ability to create defects was pretty good. It's probably arguably better than our ability to create features. And if you show them as a ratio here, so if this is changes to the system, the percentage of those changes to the system which are the intentional delivery of features, and those changes which are the unintentional delivery of defects, you can see if we carried on in this direction, we were going to run out of blue quite soon. So the first thing that I did was say, look, one of the problems is we're giving our work back to the customer and saying, hey, it's done now, see you later. We're not actually getting an engagement with them that says, is this actually what you needed from us? Is this actually doing what you asked it to do? And then internally, we didn't have our kind of own reviewing in process. Code was just being written, committed, that's it, it's gone. So we put in explicit policies and put explicit states into the workflow to say, code has to be reviewed by somebody, work has to be approved by the customer before we can say it's done and it's in a position to provide value to them. So we got all of that set up, and we had our electronic board, but we also had an absolutely horrendous clanger here. So we had stuff queued, it's in progress, it's customer approved, it's done. This is a horrendous artifact and is a function of using the the tracking software we're using, which was JIRA, out of the box. So out of the box, the JIRA workflow has a state called blocked. And if you say, JIRA, make me a Kanban board from this, you'll get a column called blocked. And you've then institutionalized the notion of legitimately blocking stuff. You just say, well, it's all right, it's blocked. I'll stick it over blocked, I'll pull some more work on that. This was horrendous. The worst thing about it was that no amount of talking about it at the stand-ups or discussing it on email would make it go away. It was just like, well, yeah, we've got it there. And there was no desire to change. And if you looked at the cumulative flow for the work, so this is all projects, I find cumulative flow, I love cumulative flow diagrams. I find them very, very useful. I sometimes find that it's even more useful if you chop the done off and just look at this little band of activity here, and you can see some more interesting things going on. So one thing we had is this horrendous green cancer of this blocked state. And then we also had peer review. Well, F was happening with peer review. The peer review seems to have ballooned out there. Something was clearly wrong there. And then to cap it all, the Kanban board stopped working. I mean, it's kind of, what can you do? And in that case, all we could really do was go to the pub. Now, this is taken from one of my favourite books, a book I knew about it for several years, but I only read it earlier this year, actually, is Eli Goldratt's The Goal. Who's read The Goal? Everyone who hasn't read it, you're in for a real treat. It's absolutely fantastic. It's a hugely entertaining book because of the way it's written, because it's written as a story. The stuff stays with you afterwards. It's like, oh, I remember that bit. That's really good. And it's a fantastic bit in it where the hero of the novel, the beleaguered factory manager, he takes the day off work, he goes and grabs some beers, and he goes and sits up in the fields above his factory and looks down on it and tries to work out what's the goal there. And I think the key thing there is that he had beers with him, so that's a good job. So we went to the pub and we played games. We played the Get Kanban game. Now, I know there are loads of fantastic games and simulations that come out. This is the only one that I'm really familiar with, but it was effing great because it took away all of the kind of closeness and context of where we were and stopped it being me banging on about stuff and saying, oh, at UV we did this, or oh, in this book it says that, and just said, let's play this. I'll step back from it. I didn't play the game. I just stood there taking photos. And it had a fantastic impact. This is the comments that came back from the developers. I was skeptical when it came to Agile, but after playing the Kanban game, I was able to appreciate the benefits the game demonstrated. By playing the game, apprehensions about Agile methodology change, it really demonstrated the value of limiting work in progress. What it really demonstrated, and it took me quite a while for the penny to drop on this. It was actually only when I saw, sorry, I can't remember the guy's name. One of the talks at Lean Kanban France was about the importance of making your wait states and your queues explicit. And what this really taught me was how important that is. So here's another Kanban system that I manage at home. So this is my 18-month boy, Louis, and he has a fantastic capability for eating watermelon. He's a bit naive in that he thinks his capability for eating watermelon is actually far greater than it really is, and he will happily put them in more and more into his mouth, and his levels of watermelon in progress, or whip, if you will, get such that they just start coming out again. So we introduced this buffering mechanism here, which means that he's only ever eating one piece of watermelon at a time, and that works really well. And I'm sure as his capability matures, we won't need to use the buffering mechanism. But that was what we needed in our practice. We needed something to say, okay, peer review is a capacity-constrained resource. Things can't just go into peer review. You can only put so much stuff in there, and we need to make it explicit that stuff is waiting to be reviewed so that we know when it's building up and we can do something about it. So we did that. We added this awaiting review session, and immediately we made the Zen of Python. Any Python programmers here? One, fantastic. I love Python. I absolutely love Python. One of the things I love most about Python is the Zen of Python. And one of the lines from the Zen of Python is, explicit is better than implicit. And it's making things visible and saying, there's your problem, is fantastic, even if it doesn't look very nice. So we had that, and we thought, great, we can do something about that. But we also had another problem highlighted, is that, okay, so we're doing the work, we're kind of gradually sorting out getting our own house in order, but then when it goes back to the customer, they don't seem to be interested in it. Not interested in it at all. It just sits there. Some of it gets approved and starts being used after, say, 5 days. There's something here that's been waiting for 70 days. Why is that? Why is no one interested in this work? Is it just an administrative cock-up? Have we not? Is JIRA so hard to use that, or so we've not done a good enough job of communicating how to use it that things are just not being approved? Or is it something worse? Is it that we're actually not working on things that are of any use to the customer? If actually we're not working on things that are value? And it was a mixture of the two, but it was the former that we chose to tackle. Now, I'm a huge fan of declarative specifications and specification by example. And a friend of mine stuck this up on Facebook. It's a kid with Asperger's who was given this to do, and he interpreted the imperative instructions at the top in this way, and he's absolutely on the money. He's absolutely correct. And this is exactly what happens with imperative requirements for software. Very often they'll be, you can answer them to the letter, you can do exactly what they said, but you can deliver something that wasn't what was expected. It's like, oh no, I didn't really mean that. I'll wait for that phone to go to finish. Once you got that, we'll go on to the next one. So we thought, well, let's bring in some BDD practices. Let's bring in some specification by example, and that's what we did. So here's Dean, one of our developers. Here's Ollie, who's the customer in this case. So he works on the way we allocate money back to our YouTube partners when it comes in. So it's not a straightforward process, and it's a mixture of stuff that's algorithmic and stuff that's human, that needs some decision support. So they're working on that, and here's an example of what one of our features looks like. This is from the other end of our sort of content delivery pipeline. We do a lot of football video, football, sports in general. The watch window for sports is very, very short. Lots of people will watch it after the event and then it tails off and not interested in it anymore. So in order to get the videos, as much value out of the videos as possible, we need them to be discoverable quickly. So we need the metadata to be tagged and all this sort of thing. And we don't want people to be doing that by hand because it's error prone and labor intensive. So we have so in order to make it easy to find the football clips on YouTube, we're given this stuff comes in from the what's called a predator. A predator is a producer editor. So it's true. It's true. I'm not making this up. So the predator is this. We get the video, and we then turn it into YouTube-specific metadata. Now, one of the benefits of working in this way is that it really helps you reduce your batch size. Because as soon as these start to get too long, or as soon as this starts to look like it's covering more than one thing, an alarm bell goes off and you say, no, this is more than one thing. We can split this out. And when that works, it's great because you have much shorter cycle times. And you start to see, well, we started to see reasonably predictable cycle times for different kind of classes of, or different work of different types of complexity. So when we went to look at a new piece of work, we could say, it looks a bit like one of these tiny changes to the XML we have to send to YouTube when we upload videos, or looks a bit like adding a new rule to how you map football domain-specific metadata to YouTube metadata. Or, what the fuck is this? And, you know, what's this crazy outlier over here? We will come to that. So as a result of this, of doing the BDD and putting these making the weight states explicit, so we actually did something about them when we saw them, we got to a much better relationship with our customer. He said, you know, when you started off, yeah, great, you had the backlog and everything. There wasn't any point putting things in the backlog. You had no idea when they'd actually get done. It was like you were just sort of throwing things into a bottomless pit. But now we have a predictable idea of how long things will take to do and when they'll get to it, which is music to my ears. It was something that's, you know, that's the. So I said I'm talking about our practice at this conference. I'd love to get a quote from you on this. So that's what he gave me. Back to the outlier. So the reason that one took so long, I thought when I was preparing the slides for this talk, I thought that took so long because it was bastard hard and it was interacting with some external systems and all that business. It wasn't. I love Benjamin. He's a great guy. And one thing that I saw him talk about years and years and years and years ago was this thing he'd done where he sort of marked the history of a ticket as across the board and done this little thing so you could see the torturous journey it had taken from idea to completion. So I thought I would apply that to our data, and we got this. So this shows you the states that things have gone through, and normally they're depending on how far in advance of us having available capabilities to work on them, they'll be queued. They're in progress, they wait for review, they get their review, and then the customer approves them. And here we can see the problem with things not being customer approved. But also here is our lovely outlier that goes on like that and bounces off the side and comes down there. So we actually see, what was it doing all the time? It was awaiting review. So why was it waiting review? What was, why? And then when it came through its review, ping, it was out in one day and into customer approval. Why did it take so bloody long? Where was everyone? They were here. So you can see what I'm trying to do with this talk is sort of go out in sort of concentric rings to show how as we solve one problem, it allowed us to look sort of further out and show, oh, all right, more problems. All right, let's have a look at those. Clearly, too many projects in progress. So how do you figure out what you do with these? I love the blue Kanban book. Who wouldn't? It's fantastic, short, to the point, full of great messages. This one I love even more. There is so much wisdom in this book, and it's really taught and to the point. And there's this great reference to Peter Senge about the ability of an organisation to understand what it does. The holistic system is the first step to becoming a learning organisation. And this is the bit I love here. It consistently improves competitiveness because it understands what it does. So it's a sort of thing that you talk to people who hold the purse strings or investors in the company. You're talking their language. You're talking about we want to be more competitive. We don't want to just come up with lots of diagrams and stuff. We actually want to be a more competitive company, and that's going to come about from having a better understanding of what we do. And if we're currently working on 5 projects and they're all flatlining because we're stopping one and picking up another, or then might that be because we don't know which ones are worth working on? So we got everyone together and we pulled in the third kind of element of our practice, so Kanban, behaviour-driven development. The third one is domain-driven design, so the Eric Evans thing. And I was lucky enough to do Goiko Adzik's behaviour-driven development workshop a year or so ago, and I had a real light bulb moment where we're working through a feature specification, and he said, it's when you're doing this that you really get to understand the domain model, and you end up refactoring the domain model as a result of how you describe what you're doing in the feature. So I made some stabs at domain modeling myself, and then presenting this to business. That was a waste of time. It's like, oh, nice diagram, great, yeah. So we've got some work to do, by the way. So said, you guys, come and tell us what we do. How does the company work? How does the company make money? And we ended up with this. So this is, the yellow is people or groups, the green boxes are actions, and the blue are sources of data that they need to do their actions. And we looked at this, and we looked at our 5 projects, and we said, 2 of these aren't even on the value stream. How did those even come into being? It's like, oh, well, we had this idea that we might do this thing, and then we decided we didn't really want to do it. Yeah, but we're still spending time working on that. It's like, oh, right, okay, what do you propose we do? We'll stop doing them. Okay, let's do that. All right, that leaves 3. This one here, we killed this one because no matter how fast you turn the handle here, it's not going to make any difference because basically it's the process of paying our customers, our producers rather, and that's affected by the point that the money and data comes in from YouTube. So it was not going to be, it wasn't where the pain point is. We identified 2 areas that the business thought could really add value. One is to do with how you upload content, set your monetization rules, set your rights policies, put your metadata on, and so on and so forth. The other is providing a way for managing those channels and reducing the amount of manual account management that needs to be done. So it's a mixture of reducing costs and of growing revenues by either improving our offering to make it more attractive to more partners to come to us, or by taking an error-prone and labour-intensive activity and putting some automation around it. So we killed off those 3 projects, and the other 2 started to show signs of life. So this is taken from one of them. So this is to the point of this is impact mapping. So we're still in our early stages of our use of impact mapping. I think it's fantastic. I haven't yet got to a stage where it's kind of like a habit that you think, oh, I've got a great idea for an X. Let's step back from that X and see if there's an actual chain back from the thing you want to do, why you want to do it, who's going to help you do it, the goal you're trying to achieve. But this is an example of one that did work. So we want to do another thing. We want to demonstrate the value the company adds to our producer partners. We want to appear transparent, and we want to reduce the amount of reactive account management. And actually, it's in the gift of our producer partners to do that themselves. We don't have to do anything. They can do it themselves if we provide them with a way that they can answer more questions about the channel's health themselves. And the phone call that we get the most is to say, how many of my views that I'm getting on YouTube are actually going to turn into money? And if we do that, build that, put it through the system, we can then put that live. We can say, here's your official views, here's your monetizable views, and then you could actually say, okay, now does the phone start ringing less because we're getting fewer of these sort of reactive questions, or are we attracting people to come and partner with us because they can see we offer this facility? But we still have this problem: customer approval. Still things getting stuck here. So how can we show that this is not us just whining that people aren't using JIRA? It's not about JIRA, it's not about the tools, it's about we're building stuff and then it's not realizing its value because it's sitting there waiting to be used. So I produced this graph which shows this is where we are, this is the stuff we've actually delivered, is deployed, is working, and this is where we would be if the things in customer approval were approved. And that area is risk, because there's a risk that you'll look at this thing and say, nah, haven't got it right, go back and do some rework, or you're way off the map. So once presented that seems to help to kind of reduce the discrepancy between the 2. So some of them it works very well. This is 2 cycles. One is the time from coming into development to being finished and approved, for development being finished and it being ready to be approved by the customer, and the other is from coming into development to actually being deployed and being used. So some of them, this one way out, those ones way out. Generally, though, it was improving. And this is, who's read Lean from the Trenches? Everyone who hasn't read Lean from the Trenches, you're in for a real treat. It's an absolutely fantastic book. It's really, really short. It's every page in it will either confirm something you're doing as being, yeah, that's good, or it'll give you a great idea for something else you can do. And if no other takeaway from this session, really recommend Lean from the Trenches. It's a really, really good book. I stole this very world's simplest control chart from Lean from the Trenches. It's just graph your throughput and then order it either by size or, in this case, by time. One of the things that he talks about in Lean from the Trenches is how actually the cycle time changes depending on where you are in the project, because it may be that you've built some sort of complex, valuable functionality, and then suddenly seeing that working raises the question, oh, if you've got that, could I have one that does that but slightly different? Yes, of course you can, and we can develop it very quickly because we've done all the donkey work here. And we've seen, this is, small sample size, more anecdote than science, but we see this kind of a pattern. I'm now going to bust open Excel just to dig into, how are we doing for time? Okay. I'm just going to bust open Excel and just dig into some of that data a bit more. I have to switch it over to mirrored. Otherwise it doesn't work. Oh, it is mirrored already. Okay. So, before I do that, I'll show you. This is how we report our metrics to the management team. So we show the throughput of value work by the team. there's the two projects, the uploader and the portal, and then the purple line is, sorry, not the purple line, and then the red line is extra, which is stuff that hasn't fitted into those two groups, which I'll come on to in a bit later. So you can see the ops tools one tends to stay around here. Something funny going on there, I don't know. Portal disappeared off the map completely. And we had 3 weeks of nothing from portal. Which raised the question, what's going on? Where is all that stuff? Are we ever going to see anything on the portal again? If we were to not do anything and come back in a year's time, will we still not see anything from the portal? Or do we need to intervene? And we answered that by having a look at the work in progress. So if I flip over to this view here, so here we can see all the different states that the work has gone through, and we can see that there were a couple here that kept bouncing out of in progress and going back into the queue again, which is not ideal. And I mean, maybe you're doing round robin resource scheduling, and you've actually decided to carve the thing up into discrete chunks. This wasn't the case here. What happened here is there was a massive external dependency on our finance department we wanted to provide information to our customers that we'd hitherto had only come from finance. It was a very kind of, no, this is our data, we manage this relationship with the customer, we provide them with the data, that's it. The motivation for moving away from that was, again, it's reduce the amount of reactive account management and allow partners to see their financial data straight away. But getting it and getting it working end-to-end was non-trivial. And the product manager took the decision that until these non-trivial things were ready, some other related but reasonably trivial things we're going to have to wait as well. So we have a whole load of stuff here that's actually ready for release. Customer's happy with it, but it's not going to go live. And if we flip over to the CFD view of that, we can see that over here. So it's all sitting here waiting to go through, and then bang, it goes through at the end. So of those two projects, it's interesting. One of them has pretty smooth flow because we have a very, very close relationship with the customer, who will tear the thing out of our hands while we're still testing it and say, yeah, I know you haven't finished testing it, but I want to try it out. And then the customer approval happens kind of almost instantly. This one, the flow is more bumpy. So we say, yeah, it's ready, you can have it, it can go live. No, I want to wait because I want to do a big splash around it. I want to say, look, not just one this week, not just one feature, 5 features, and do a mail out to partners to say, new in your partner portal, this. So I kind of think it's horses for courses. I don't yet know whether amongst the developers we say, well, this stuff's waiting. There's no reason why it can't go live, but the customer has a very good reason saying, no, actually, I don't want it to go live, and this is why. So we listen to them and say, all right, that's fine, let's do that. So meanwhile, back in PowerPoint, get rid of Mr. Gates. One of the great things that happened on one of these projects was that the customer actually started running the stand-up. So he came and said, I'll have a go at this. And he came and said, we have our Kanban board up on this quad here. Rather embarrassingly, we have a failing Jenkins job over there. But you know, visualize it, make it visible, get the habit loops in place that say when you see that, you go and fix it. I'm going to talk about habit loops in a minute. So that was gratifying. It's our 8-bit computer collection over here, BIC 20, Commodore 64. And then the Kanban board, as well as being in this big quad that everyone can see it, because it's electronic, it can go to where the work is. So this was not staged. This was grabbing a snapshot of one of our guys doing some work and referring to the board as he works. So it's something that can go out to where the work is and can be very easily shared with management. Habit loops. I've mentioned these in passing. Has anyone read this book, Power of Habit? If you haven't read it, you're in for a real treat. It's fantastic. It's really interesting. And it starts with talking about sort of neurochemistry and kind of how sort of habit loops develop in the brain and that sort of thing. And it sort of goes out from that talking about organizational habits and stuff like that. And I realized that this is actually everything we've been talking about so far is at the level of the team or the organization or what have you. And actually, if you don't pay attention to things at the sort of the human scale, the wheels fall off pretty quickly. And I'm no psychologist. I don't pretend to bring any of the kind of great wisdom that people at Benjamin have brought into our practice from that. But this I found very, very useful. Understanding what loops you can put in place to get more benefit for everyone. So I'll give you a couple of examples. One is the wiki habit loop, which is that the cue is, I don't know how to do something, and no one else seems to know how to do it. And then the routine would be, oh, well, I'll fix it myself, and then, yeah, we're done. And then somebody else comes and tries to solve the same problem. They're like, I don't know how to do this. Oh, there's nothing on the wiki. Da, da, da. So the habit we put in place is, I don't know how to do something. It's not documented. I will write a wiki page for it, and the reward will be that when the problem comes up again, as a team, we won't have to waste time trying to find the answer to that. I got bitten on the arse by this, by one of our fantastic developers who was doing some stuff with S3. In S3, if you upload a style sheet to S3, it doesn't put the correct MIME type on it. You have to go and set that yourself. He was mentioning this to me. It was an email conversation. He mentioned this. He says, yeah, I found out you've got to do this thing with MIME types in S3. I said, oh, yeah, I know about that. And he goes, I'll look forward to seeing your wiki page then. And it's like, all right, yes, that's a fair cop. I'll do that. So that's one habit loop. The other one that's more relevant to the whole Kanban thing is the habit loop of when the queue of peer review was getting too big, say, hang on a minute, we need to do something about that. Why are we allowing that to get to the length it is? And it was great. I was listening in on a stand-up yesterday where this guy, who's now the team leader for one of the products, said, look, this is too long now. Before anyone gets back into working on anything today, everyone takes something from here and get it reviewed and help it on its way. So that's kind of our model for kind of the stuff that we understand, the stuff that we understand the business wants. The mystery bit of this talk and the whole sort of what I hope is the interesting part of it is that that's all well and good if your understanding of the business is correct and if your understanding of what's required for you is correct. And it can kind of fail in two ways. One is the sort of failure at the sort of level of granularity. So as well as having the Kanban board that tracks a whole lot of stuff that we're interested in, I also have randomly scribbled notes, which may actually be really important things that need to be done, or they may just be not. I don't know. But if they prove not to be just trivial, kind of, go and pick up my groceries, whatever, they stay in the world of paper. If they don't, they come into non-motorway traffic, which is, this is my personal Kanban board. So for this, it's stuff is either doing blocks because it's gone to somebody else to do, or it's done or it didn't happen. And this is stuff where it's the kind of coordination and communication overhead of JIRA-fying it and all that. Would just kill it. It's a small discrete piece of work. As long as we track that it needs doing, and it's probably going to be down to me to do it, then I can have a conversation with my manager about this and say, yeah, you don't need to have me to write you a report on what I'm doing. We don't need to have a weekly review meeting. You can see all the time what I'm doing here, and we can discuss it whenever it's needed. And then if we start to see things that are patterns in here that actually suggest that I'm not really doing what I'm supposed to be doing, so maybe I get Onka a laptop, I get Gabor a laptop, it's gone off down here. I sort somebody's monitor out and says, hang on a minute, I seem to be doing a lot of IT work. What's going on there? I love it. I'm a cable basher at heart. But maybe that's not the best use of my time. Maybe we need to factor this into how we model the work of the business. And then if it's even bigger than that, it goes onto this board here. So this is stuff that does not fit into this is the square pegs that do not fit into the round holes we've set up. And this is worrying here because there seems to be we intentionally set the width limits very, very low to show that this is if we're not set up to deal with this kind of work and we're trying to deal with a lot of it, something is wrong. So a big red light goes off to say, why are we trying to do these things at once? Maybe something's wrong with the board, with the way we're doing it. And what really hit me with this was one of the pieces of work that came in had an incredibly well articulated cost of delay. I've been banging on about cost of delay at work for about a year, and it's always kind of like, run that by me again? What are you talking about? But somebody seemed to get it and say, look, if this doesn't go live tomorrow, we lose 4K. It's like, all right, because you have articulated your cost of delay so well, I'm very happy to do this piece of work. But if you can do this, why can't the rest of the business? Why can't we get the rest of the business to do this? Can we build a model, an economic model for the whole business that allows us to calculate cost of delay across everything. I don't know. I'm hoping in a year's time to come back and tell you whether we succeeded in that or not. But what it did show us is that the map we had earlier, you may remember that, is actually far more complicated. There's actually a whole load of stuff going on that wasn't on there. That's a slightly simplified view of it, and this is where the cost of delay is 4K a day stuff was coming from. We were tooled up to work here and here. We weren't tooled up to work here. So this is the kind of point I'm trying to make about how you can get these models, they look all right, and then suddenly you think, well, no, they're not. We need to go back and improve them. So to finish, I'm just going to invoke the spirit of two people that have helped me in sort of thinking about where my work is. First is Roland Barthes. Does anyone know who Roland Barthes is? He's the sort of fantastic. He's a father of semiology, the study of signs. About 100 years ago, I was an art historian. That's my original training, and there's a fantastic essay in which he talks about, he breaks down, does an analysis of his picture, and he talks about the distinctions he's made as having operational validity, and that phrase, operational validity, has stayed in my mind, and kind of, I've applied it to sort of everything I've done since then. So with all the stuff I've shown you before, that's great as long as it has operational validity, and the operational validity is massively context specific, and as soon as it stops having it, then you, in the words of Roxy Music, which is why we have Brian Ferry here, you remake, remodel. So don't, and be happy to kind of to throw the stuff away, throw it in the air, see where it lands. Look at the stuff that maybe is so small that it looks like it's trivial. Apparently trivial stuff can then grow up to be actually a massive source of demand. And maybe the whole way you've constructed your teams to deal with what you think is the main source of demand is wrong, and you need to bring in some other people. So it's a constantly evolving thing. So that's me. These are some of the books I've talked about throughout this. So that's the Eric Evans one. That's Lean from the Trenches. That's The Goal, David's first book, and this is Gojko Adzik's book. They're all very short. That's not short. All of them are very short, apart from the Eric Evans one, but they're a blast. And they are, they're probably the kind of the texts that most inform my practice. So that's that. Who would like to ask a question? Hello.
You said that limiting width didn't work for you. Is that still the case?
No, so we got that one. Limiting WIP by devolving the responsibility for limiting WIP to the developers didn't work because we had this institutionalized idea of blocked. Two, we hadn't explicitly modeled the wait state ahead of the capacity constrained activity of peer review, and three, we weren't as a team, and I include myself in this, we weren't sufficiently mature to know when we were overreaching ourselves. So here it's all, we've got explicit WIP limits. I had a real stumbling block with explicit WIP limits. I don't know why. I just couldn't do it. It was kind of, it just seemed like, where are you getting these numbers from? And then just said, fuck it, we're doing it, and it appears to work. Sample size of 1, and particularly works well for this this kind of out of bounds stuff here, because if you set the limit really, really low, you can say that we just are not tooled up to be doing the contact form for UGen sign up and adding new portals to new login portals. Something's got to give here. So either we're approaching this work in the wrong way, or actually there's far more demand for this stuff than we think, and we need to look at the way we're actually tooled up and arranged for that. I think Kanban, my experience of the two Kanban systems that I've worked in has been the biggest benefit of Kanban is an organisational change agent, because it gives you information, and sort of quantified information that you can use to have informed discussions with people about the way the company's set up, what the goals of the company are, that sort of thing, and then you get some much bigger changes than just the stuff you see down at this level. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Hello.
You talk about having the customer on the team. So who is the customer?
That's a very good question. So we have, it's a bit like working. I used to work in broadcast, and it's a bit there where you have an eventual consumer of of what you're developing, who is actually the point where the money actually comes in, and then you have you don't have any contact with them. We do with some. We're trying to improve that, but in this case, the customer is, for the portal one, it's somebody who is effectively the representative of our producer partners that use it, and they're effectively acting as a proxy to them. The ops tools one, it is the people who are currently doing a lot of stuff by hand, and are saying, I have to have 5 browser windows open so I can be logged into the YouTube CMS, and I can be doing this over here and here. And I was hired for my domain knowledge about music or about football, and all I'm doing is endlessly uploading videos or endlessly entering metadata. So I have to say, with the ops tools one, I find a lot more gratifying to work with, because you know these are the people who are, as I say, they are literally saying, I know you haven't finished testing it, I want to try it out. The portal, it's still a bit kind of, you're a step removed, there's an inference there. I think there's more work required there. That's why I think the impact mapping is so important, to actually say, what's the testable criteria for this? How do we actually know this is the value? And we're not there yet. It's an evolving thing, and
Just getting down to one side.
yeah, I guess so. It's very kind of you. Anyone else? Hello.
Mentioning impact mapping is interesting, because I've just been learning about that with recently.
Oh, fantastic! You've done his workshop.
Yeah, it's
Brilliant.
Well, kind of relates to it. It's really good. What I found interesting, you talked about the value part, and you were talking about the flow versus the consumption, and the fact that your flow was more lumpy. One of your
Yes, exactly. So that's so interesting. So that's the one. That's on the one where the customer is a proxy for the people that we think are the customers. So there, I think it's a reflection of the fact that you've got a bit of indirection, and you haven't got people actually. You're kind of, yeah. It's not. You're not dealing. Your feedback loop's too big, too long, and in some cases, it's kind of the feedback loop kind of goes off and nothing comes back.
What I was wondering was whether as part of the mapping process, you could work that in so you could understand how far away your customer is, and then you design your flow, not just what you want to develop, but also potentially how you want to develop.
Yeah, no, I think so, because it's because then if you understand sort of the levels of indirection you're going through, then yeah, that's a really good idea. I'll take that. Sorry? Thank you. Information by its very nature wants to be free. Sorry.
So we've got a physical board at the moment.
Yes.
Kanban, and we're moving over to JIRA. So do you think we lose anything by moving to electronic Kanban, or are we in for a treat?
The truthful answer is I don't know, because the physical Kanban board I used in a completely different context to the electronic one. I'm a dyed-in-the-wool stationary fetishist cardboard person from doing XP at the BBC 12 years ago. But the reason I opted for JIRA, well, the company had already bought JIRA, and it's like, all right, that's what we got here. And we were envisaging being a distributed team. We are distributed not only between Waterloo and Covent Garden at the moment, but I think Dan Brown is probably the best person to speak to. He's sitting diagonally across from you there. But and doubtless other people as well. My experience with the physical board, what's great about it is the presence of it. We tried to reproduce that by having this big quad screen thing here. And the fact that with a physical board, and if you read Lean from the Trenches, he talks about why he loves the physical board is because you can change it really quickly. You can immediately see, right, this is not reflecting reality, quick, change the board. JIRA's not too bad. And I wrote some code to pull, the main reason that I use the electronic board is because you get the data, and you get the data that you need to make the decisions you need. And I wrote some code to pull all the stuff out and do the pretty graphs and stuff, which is available on GitHub. Dan.
A lot of your reports were in Excel, a lot of your data was in Excel, but you're using JIRA.
Yes.
Is that not an overhead?
So it's automated. I'm using Python plus pandas to do that, and then it's just a bit of ta-da, stick some graphs over the top of it. So no, so the overhead of there's a great thing in Don Reinertson's tests of a good measure. One of his tests of a good measure is you should be able to get it for free, and I thoroughly believe that, because it's as soon as you actually have to start putting effort into it, you get friction, it stops working. So no, it's done through the back door, through the JIRA REST interface and the Python language bindings and pandas. Hakan.
A very quick reflection on that. My thinking is, don't invest in an electronic board to get the metrics. It's more important to have a board that you can interact with when in a daily work, and then make the effort of collecting the metrics manually if that's needed. So don't see it collecting the metric is the important part of having it electronic. You have to solve a different problem with the electronic tool, because collecting the metrics is actually very, very, very cheap to do electronically, non-electronically. Take a digital picture every day, track start date and end date, and you have more or less all the data you need.
Yeah, I think we could have a debate on this all day. Every tool has its limitations, whether it's a physical tool or stickies and post-it notes, or whether it's an electronic tool. And I think we both have their different places and do solve slightly different problems.
Yeah, context is everything.
That works for you best in your current context.
Yeah,
And inspect and adapt away.
absolutely. Hi.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Cost delay. I
Yes.
didn't see you, or you may have had on there, but I may have missed it, the date on your email.
Oh, I deliberately obfuscated that.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Anyway, the reason I asked was because I didn't know how long ago the email was.
Oh, no, have a look. There you are.
It is there, that's quite recent. Just whether you had any plans for how you're going to try and
Yeah, so
understand that.
right, so I was lucky enough to do Don Reinertsen's workshop at Lean Kanban Netherlands on this, and he convinced me that you can build an economic model for the business, because if there wasn't one, why would we have got $10 million from Peter Chernin, and why would we be attracting more customers? It's in there somewhere. It's getting out. Now, one of the people I work with, when I've suggested this, when I showed other people who were asking for work from us this email, they said, "Yeah, I could come up with a figure like that." And it's, you know, Simon, the guy whose quote was earlier about the fact that the throwing things into the backlog or whatever, he said, "You're going to end up with a quantified pissing contest." And I think there's a real tension in the work we're doing between all of this stuff which is reducing it down and making and abstracting away from it and providing models, and the fact that we know from all the complexity theory work and all the psychology work that it's actually anything but. And that's why I think, but that's why one, this stuff always has to be being prodded and said, is it still operationally valid? Do we need to change it? And the other is that it's got to be, it's not the end in itself. So like in the weekly report where we show no throughput for one of the projects, I worked with Dan. I had the pleasure of working for an Accenture consultant who saw what our average throughput was. He says, "Okay, so the target throughput is now 10 tickets a week." So you don't really get it. Let me talk to you about common cause variation, and it was just it was real facepalm stuff. So to Drunk Cod's point yesterday, I can't pronounce your real name, which is why I'm referring to as Drunk Cod. Sorry? All right, Toby. So to Toby's point yesterday about a measure that becomes a target loses all value as a measure, I think that's one of the things that we've been blessed here is that you do occasionally hear the T word come up, but we always just pretend not to hear it and say, let's have a look at the data and let's have a conversation based on the data and then let's decide what we're going to do.
Is that email a good thing to be showing to your colleagues and say, I want you all to do that?
No, because I'm not saying.
Is that the kind of behavior?
Well, no, because no, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, this person is able to articulate the cost of delay. You're not. So we can have a discussion about how we then husband our resource and schedule things. But let's at least start with everyone being able to say this is what it'll cost if we don't do it. Because if we say this is going to cost us 4K if we don't do it tomorrow, everything else I don't know. Then so it's more of a kind of devil's advocate type thing.
I think it's a very valid concern, because it sort of points out that if I tell them that 4K by tomorrow, then I'll get it done. Now I know what number to plug in
Well, no, you don't, because because that's not what I'm doing with it. What I'm doing is saying this is if we don't know what the value of this stuff is, and if you can't challenge this, then this will happen. But what happens with this is everyone else says no, that figure's not taking this into account, or this
Stimulates the others.
exactly. So it stimulates the other.
Others to give you the number you require to expedite it.
No, it doesn't. It could. If it was being very naive, it would.
It's still a business requirement, right? It's
Yeah.
still going to cost a certain amount of money for certain things. That's the reality. And it's up to us to try and challenge that in the right way. The cost of delay is a financial reality, whether you like it or not.
There's a financial reality in it, and we can be very honest and try and figure out what our uncertainty about it is, and we can have a nice discussion, nice transparent discussion about risk portfolios and a lot of high trust behavior. We can do that, or I can be a very stressed person wanting to get my shit out, so I give you a number, shut up.
I think you're miswritten. I think maybe I'm misrepresenting the situation. This is not a you will instantly get your thing done if you do this. This was used to inform our. This actual piece of work is very small. So if you're applying the weighted shortest job first policy to the queues, this meant this piece of work could not jump to the head of the queue, but it could jump quite far up and then get done. It didn't actually get done tomorrow. It got done I think 2 days later. So maybe we did lose 4K for one day or not. I don't know. But it sparked the debate. It started us thinking about, well, what's the actual reason we're building this stuff? Because this guy seems to have an idea. None of you else do.
If you never did anything because it might go wrong, then you'd never do anything.
Sorry?
If you didn't do something because it might go wrong, then you'd never do anything.
Exactly. Yeah. Sorry, you.
I think what I wanted to say, it's almost been covered now, but the concept of the pissing contest is quite interesting, because if you have business people or customers who are beginning to piss, they have to have something to have their contest with. So they might actually start to look at whether 4K is actually a realistic value.
Absolutely.
They might then start having conversations and really understanding.
Well, yeah, and also you have to look at other dimensions as well, because you might say, well, this is going to save us loads of money, but by doing this, we neglect these strategic goals. Or so it's not. I think again it comes back to this thing of nothing is truly reducible. The economic model. I think if you are going to try and boil things down to an economic model, there has to be some other stuff to go with it, and that's where I am right now. Is trying to work out what kind of quantified, abstract model of the business is helpful and actually means that we have conversations that aren't just whack-a-mole, and you're actually having some engagement that says, yeah, this is worth spending time on now, or this is an option that we could spend time on, but it's not going to be. We're not losing sufficient money if we don't do it in a month's time, in 2 months' time, never. So it's again, it's all the data. The function of the data for me is to spark the debate and inform the discussion, and then take it from there. Anyone else? Thank you very much for coming. It's been a great audience. Thank you.